had grown sprouts before, but I'd never grown microgreens before, and I was excited to see how it would go. So I did an experiment where I used the exact same seeds, and I started them at the exact same time, and I grew both microgreens and sprouts so that I can do a, one-on-one comparison and decide which one I prefer, which one I like. Just do kind of a comparison experiment. I put these together in a live video that I will link up above in the cards. So if you're at all interested in seeing me set these up before, you can check out that video there. But this is basically a diary of how things progressed, and then finally my feelings and my conclusions about microgreens versus sprouts. Okay, so here is the microgreens at 2 days. They have started to sprout. That's what all this white is. But there is a spot over here. And it's looking a little fuzzy, and I do not like that, so I'm going to be keeping the lid off to let it get a little bit more airflow. Here's the sprouts, and they're looking pretty good too. They've started to crack open. It looks like they aren't quite as far as long as the microgreens, but not looking too bad. It's been 3.5 days now, and they're definitely, most of the seeds have started to open up, and they're starting to grow a little bit. The seed is a little bit inconsistent. Some stuff is germinating a lot better than other seeds, and this is just my homegrown seed, so it's not the highest quality seed, but yeah, things are starting to come up, starting to grow, so be interesting. Give it a couple more days and see just how full the spacing is going to be on this. The sprouts are doing pretty good too. 3.5 days here. Yet again, same issue on the sprouts. There's a bunch on the top that are sprouting up nicely, but then on the bottom there's a lot of seeds that are just kind of getting started. So same, not the best consistency of germination. And there's a little bit of a fuzzy spot in there. So I'm gonna have to be keeping an eye on these. Because these are my homegrown seeds, they maybe aren't the cleanest seeds. It probably would have been a good idea to wash the seeds before doing the sprouts with them. But, I'm gonna continue on with the experiment. We'll hopefully not be growing moldy poison sprouts. We'll see how it goes. So it's been a week now, and here are the microgreens. They're starting to get a little bit leggy. You can see that they're quite long in here. I've set them up just in a windowsill rather than in like a grow light situation, just because I was curious to see how these would do even with our not ideal window situation. So far I'm actually pretty happy with it. The germination hasn't been great on my sprouts in the jar, but it's not as much of an issue really with the microgreens because there's stuff that germinated right away, but then you can kind of see in here, then there's other stuff that's starting to germinate just a little bit slower than the rest of the greens, but I think this is gonna need probably another week before it's ready, so that'll give the little kind of delayed stuff a chance to do some growing too. Everything looked a lot neater in here. Earlier I actually gave this a water. The soil was starting to get a little bit dried out, so it was time to get a little bit more moisture in there, and spraying it with the water kind of, pushed everything side to side. But so back in the window, and I'm gonna keep checking on it. So here's my sprouts, and they are ready. This is 1 week on the sprouts, and they look pretty good. I haven't tried them yet, but this is kind of interesting because this is showing really well the germination on my homegrown seeds. For me, you can see all this dark stuff on the bottom. This is seeds that are just super delayed in germinating. They're starting to crack open, and they're heavy enough So they actually are, you know, viable seeds, but then there's the seeds that, you know, turned into the sprouts right away, like grew into plants right in the beginning. And then if you turn and you look on the top of the sprouts right here, you can kind of see all this dark stuff that's going on. This is the seeds that are no good. These are the seeds that float up to the top for when I rinse out my jar, and they're just like stuff that's garbage, but I just wasn't able to winnow it out properly. So the germination on my kale that I used for these sprouts is probably only about 50%, whereas, you know, like kale that I buy as seeds has like really, really good germination. But yeah, so 1 week to get kale sprouts, so I'm excited to try these. You know, there's enough for like a sandwich. I did have a little bit of issues with things maybe getting, you know, just not ideal. I was rinsing these twice a day to try to keep them as clean as possible, but this kale, just because it had all the stuff in it, it wasn't the easiest seeds to sprout. So I don't know, I definitely don't think I'm gonna be trying my homegrown kale as a sprouting seed again. Here is the microgreens. It has been just over 2 weeks now, and I think they're getting pretty close to what I would like them to be for harvesting them. I'm gonna give them a couple more days, kind of get them to a full 3 weeks just to see what they look like, but I'm getting excited. They look delicious. It's been 3 weeks now for the microgreens, and they haven't really done very much in the last week or so. So I'm gonna harvest them. I wanted to give them the full 3 weeks just to see what they do. But yeah, so apologize for the wind. I'm going to just take my kitchen scissors, snip them off into a bowl, and I mean that seems basically it. Never done this before, so I want to be cutting them so I don't get any dirt in the greens. My final takeaway on doing the microgreens versus the sprouts is that the sprouts, obviously way faster. It took about 5 days for the sprouts to sprout. These microgreens I left for 3 weeks. I probably could have started harvesting them though at 2 weeks. I used about the same amount of seeds in the microgreens as I did in the sprouts, but I got way more microgreens. The sprouts were about a third of the amount. For me personally, I think the one that I'm going to go to maybe a little bit more often is the microgreens, just because even though it took longer, it was way less work. The sprouts I had to rinse a couple times a day, and it was hard to keep up with that. And if I didn't keep up with it, they went bad. And then also, they have a pretty short window for eating them. The one thing that I'm interested in the microgreens and why, you know, I'm especially glad that I left this for the 3 weeks. Now I know with the microgreens that they have a really long shelf life and like not even in the fridge. So I could make these and probably have like a 2-week window for when I could come and cut them whenever I need them. Obviously the microgreens, they take a little bit more of an expense because you have to get soil for them, whereas you just use the water for doing the sprouts. But yeah, I can see why the microgreens are so trendy. They're super easy to do. I didn't actually even use a grow light on these. I just kept them in my window, and they're really delicious. So hopefully showing you guys the process of going through the, you know, the days and the weeks of this will give you an idea of what is involved, and I encourage you guys to try. If this is your first time at our channel, please subscribe. We're not normally doing indoor growing. It's just the off season, you know, hashtag Canadian problems. But the garden is going to get starting really soon, and I'm super excited to grow as much as possible. And especially now that I have these microgreens in my arsenal of things to grow, it's going to be a good season.